Hello, I'm Christopher Gallo, and today we're going to talk about packages and invoices on the SoftLayer API. We're going to cover essentially everything you need to know about ordering, from looking through the catalog, placing the order, and looking at the invoice once it's done to determine what you were billed for. So to start off, we're going to talk about the catalog as a general concept. So in the SoftLayer API, the catalog is broken out into packages, which we see here as two examples of packages. This first one is the public cloud server package, and the second one is a dual Xeon hardware server package. These packages have a variety of different items that you can order in them. These are these little blue boxes here. And depending on which items you select in your order is what you're going to have ordered with. But you need to select items from the same package to have a valid order. So for example, we have the public cloud server package. It has two presets, which in the ordering portal are called flavors, but they're the same thing. These flavors or presets are basically groups of items that you order together, and they're kind of like a set deal. And then it has a bunch of other items that you can also add on to your order, like the operating system, IP addresses, automated notification, that sort of thing. The hardware server package, and this is one of many, is essentially the same thing, but it doesn't have any presets here. So here you would select a RAM item, a processor item, and any of the other items that you need in your package, group them all together, and put your order in. And so that's how it's all laid out conceptually. And here's how all of these objects relate to each other. So we have the SoftLayer product package service. It's got an ID and key name like all other services in the API do pretty much. And that's how you're going to identify packages from each other. A package might have presets, or otherwise known as flavors. And these is going to be a collection of items that you order at the same time. It's also going to have a collection of items. Some of those items will be in the preset if they exist, and it'll just be a list of everything that's possibly orderable from that package. So here's a little bit about the SoftLayer product package preset. Again, ID and key name. It will have a list of prices. This is how much the items in that preset will actually cost. It'll also link back to the package itself. So a SoftLayer product item price object can have an ID, which is what you'll use to order this item. Have an hourly recurring fee and a recurring fee. So hourly recurring fee is your hourly price you pay. Recurring fee is the monthly price you pay. And that's going to depend on when you place the order, if you specified hourly billing or monthly billing. It'll have an item it links to. So this price is for this item. I'll have a package. So this item is in this price is in this package. They'll have a pricing location group. That pricing location group is telling you where geographically this price is valid for. So there's a couple different things you need to know about this. First is if you see a pricing location group ID of null, that's going to be the default location group, and you can always place an order with that price ID because it's the default location, and the API will figure out, based on the location you're ordering in, which price ID to actually use. However, if you want to know ahead of time, before you place the order, how much this order is going to cost you in a specific location, for example, in Europe, the prices are a little different. You'd have to look at that pricing location group, find the location you're ordering in, and that price ID is going to be how much it will cost in Amsterdam, for example, as opposed to in Dallas. Okay, and we'll talk about that quite a bit later when we're doing orders. So the item price also links to an item, which is here. So the SoftLayer product item. Okay. Again, have an ID and key name. We'll have a category code. So this is going to be things like, it'll have like a RAM category, a CPU category, a monitoring category. And when you place an order, the order requires you have at least one item in a certain set of categories. And that's how you determine which category an item belongs to. You'll have a list of prices for that item. It'll have a package reference, so it goes back to the package. It'll have an upgrade item list, which is of the list of items you could upgrade this item into if you needed to. Okay, here's how that looks from an API perspective. So here we're going to use the SLCLI, which is a SoftLayer command line tool for making API calls and doing things like that. So we're going to call this command order package list, which is going to list all the packages available to order from. And it's going to make this specific API call. So SoftLayer product package, get all objects. We have this mask, which is selecting a bunch of different properties that we care about. And we have this filter, which is filtering out the Bluemix services from the catalog. The Bluemix services are in the catalog because we need to bill them and they show up on the invoice. So they also need to have catalog entries, but you can't order them directly through the SoftLayer Classic Infrastructure API. The Bluemix services are all orderable through the cloud.ibm.com portal, but not through the SoftLayer API, which is why we exclude them with this object filter here. So of note in this list is the ID of the package. Anytime you interact with a package, you're going to need to interact with it by its ID. The package name, package key name, which is also important. Anytime you interact with the package with the SLCLI, it'll generally be through the key name itself because that's a little more human readable than just a random ID. And its type. So here we've got an additional services type, bare metal CPU type, bare metal core type, and a bunch of additional services and that sort of thing. Okay, and just a little bit on presets. Here's all the packages that have a preset in them. Mostly it's going to be like the cloud server types, like these three right here. That's the ones you're going to mostly interact with presets. The bare metal server package also has some presets. These are the hourly bare metal servers. And these other ones also have some presets in them, but generally you're not going to be ordering those. Okay, so we talked about how to get the list of all packages. Now let's dive into a specific package and see what the items in it are. Okay, so we're calling the SLCLI again, order item list, and we're specifying the public cloud server package. And we're saying -- prices because we want to know how much it costs. So the first thing the SLCLI does is look up the package we asked for, so-called SoftLayer product package, get all objects, with the filter on the key name we specified. And so that gets us back the specific package we want. And with that, we can find the ID. The ID in this case is 835. So anytime we interact with the public cloud server package, we're going to need to tell the API ID equals 835. So to get the items, we call SoftLayer product package get items, ID 835, the properties that we want to get. And here's our list. So each item is going to have a key name, and there's a whole bunch of them. I've only listed a little bit of the list here. So here we see some bandwidth items and some Veeam items. The price ID. This is the ID when you order this object that you need to send into the API. And we'll talk about that in a bit. But this price ID is the important bit you need to remember. Well, you not remember, but that's what you send into the API, this column. Here are these other two columns, hourly and monthly. That's how much this item is going to cost you. And any restrictions on this item. And restrictions are going to look like this. It's basically saying you can only order database Microsoft SQL Server 2012 standard, this price ID, if with 2 cores. If you got 1 core, you need to have this price ID. 4 cores, this price ID, and so on and so forth. And that's how you understand the limitations of some of these items. Okay, so categories. If you do the item list without the prices tag, it'll show you the category of it as well, which you need to know in order to order things. So here we have a bandwidth category, which has a couple items, the RAM, remote management response, and so on and so forth. Okay. When you want to figure out which categories are required for ordering in a package, you call SoftLayer product package get configuration. We say ID 835, and the objects we want to select are is required and the item category, so we know what category it belongs to. So here we have the premium category is not required, new customer setup category not required, guest core is required, eVault plugin not required, RAM required. And the list goes on a bit more, but that's how you can tell which items you need to supply in an order for a specific package. All right, now let's deal into prices of items. So we've talked about packages. Packages have items in them. Items have prices, and prices is what you need to send into the API when you're doing an order. And this is getting down to the actual IDs and stuff. So we're using the SLCLI again. We're calling SoftLayer product package get items 835. The mask we're selecting the item ID, the prices of that item, the ID of that item, and the location group of that price, along with the recurring fees. So here's a very truncated look of what that response would look like. Okay, so here is all the items. Say, here's a specific item in this list. So ID, this is the item ID, the item key name. This item will have prices. And here's two specific prices for this one item, okay? So here's the default price. As you can tell, it's a default because its location group is null. The default price for it is 4 cents per hour or $26.55 per month. And this price ID is what we will send into the API. It has a second price right here. This is going to be a location-specific price. As we see, the hourly recurring fee is a little higher. It's got a set location group ID, and the pricing location group has these locations in it. So if we were ordering in Amsterdam 1, this is the price ID that we would need to look at to determine how much it would actually cost. If we're ordering in Amsterdam 1, we can send in either of these two price IDs. I just recommend sending in the default price ID because that's more consistent no matter how you're ordering from. But obviously, if you want to figure out how much it's going to cost in a specific location, using this pricing location group relationship is how you would do that. And last thing about packages is we need to talk about conflicts. Some items in a package will conflict with other items. And here's an example of that. We call SoftLayer product package get item conflicts, package 835, and we select the item and the description and the ID properties. So this item 15820, is Ubuntu Linux, and it conflicts with item 23732, which I know is Veeam Availability Suite because I've looked it up. But this is the item ID this item ID conflicts with. So if you place an order with these two item IDs in it, the API will send you a message about it. And you can figure that out ahead of time with this get item conflicts. Okay, now that we've talked about how to navigate the catalog a little bit, let's talk about how to actually place and build an order. So for our examples, we're going to be using the SLCLI, but I'll show you the actual API calls this makes as well. We call order place. Verify is a way to send in an order, but not actually place the order. Verify just checks your order, makes sure everything's okay, but doesn't actually charge you or place the order or anything. We specify our preset by the preset's key name. Our billing is going to be hourly. We have a complex type, which is going to be our product order container. Every time you place an order, you need to specify the container type it goes with. So since we're ordering a virtual guest, we use the SoftLayer container product order virtual guest container. And that container is going to specify what properties are available to set in your order. We're also specifying our extras. Specifically, this is going to be, we need to set the virtual guest property. We have a list of virtual guests. Since we're only ordering one virtual guest here, we only have one object in this array. And that's going to specify our virtual guest host name and domain name. Then we say we're ordering from the public cloud server package. We're ordering it in Dallas 13. And here is a list of other items we're ordering that are not included in our preset. Okay? So here is what the SLCLI does when you press enter on that command we just talked about. So first, it needs to find the data center ID for Dallas 13. It does this by calling the SoftLayer location get data centers API. We use an object filter, regions key name operation equals Dallas 13. And it gives us back this one result. And this ID is the data center ID we need when we place an order. Second, it finds the package ID, which we talked about a little bit already, but SoftLayer product package, get all objects with a filter on the key name we specified. And we get back ID 835. Next, it finds the preset ID. So it calls SoftLayer product package 835, get active presets. And with an object filter on the active preset key name operation, this one. It also filters on account restricted active presets, just in case the preset you asked about is only in the account restricted presets list. In general, this is not the case for most customers, but some have access to certain presets not available elsewhere. Okay, we get back our one result and our ID 337. That's the ID we're going to send into the API. Okay, next we need to get the package prices. So we call SoftLayer product package 835 get items. In our mask, we're selecting the ID of the item, description, capacity, item category, key name, and then prices in the prices category. So here's a sample of what that result would look like. So here we have an item. This is the item ID, which we don't really care about. The item key name, which we specified in our command line. So that's what the CLI is searching for. And then it's going to find the prices. It's going to find the location group ID is null. And it's going to send in this price ID to tell the API we want to order OS Ubuntu 2004. And this price ID is for an IPv6 address. This one is for 1 gigabytes public-private network uplink. All right, so once the CLI finds these price IDs, it's going to add them into our API result that we send in, which is going to look like this. This payload is what we send into the API as a post request. So this bit up here is always required anytime you make an API call that you send data into. So you open an object with JSON, you say it has a parameters property, which is an array. And the first object in that array is our order container that we send in, which has an order containers property, which again is an array. This lets you send in multiple different objects to order in one order API request. So if you wanted to order 2 different types of servers, for example, or a server and a VLAN or a server and some block storage, that's how you do that in one API call. But here we're just ordering one thing, and it's a virtual guest. We specify the virtual guest property, which lets us define each of our virtual guests that we're going to order, their host name and their domain. Since we're ordering only one virtual guest, we only have one item in this list. If we were ordering multiple, there would be a comma-separated list of the different objects that we'd be ordering with our host names and domains. Our package ID is 835. Our location is Dallas 13. We're using hourly pricing. Preset ID. Our complex type, which was that order container I talked about earlier. And our list of prices. So we have prices here, which is an array. And each element in this array is an object with an ID property. And the value of that property is the ID that the SLCLI looked up. Once you have all that, you send it in the SoftLayer product order, verify order, and that'll check to see if your order is valid. If you get an exception back, you know you need to change something. If you get a receipt back, that means your order would have worked if you had placed it normally. And to do that, all you do is call, with the same information, you'd call SoftLayer product order, place order instead to actually order something. Okay, and containers. So there's a variety of different containers for what you want to order. So here's the SoftLayer container product order virtual guest, which we talked about. There's also hardware server, network VLAN, network storage as a service, for example. And so each of these is going to have its own data type property like this. And you can read these on SLDN to see what properties you can set. But as you can see, there's quite a whole bunch of them that you can set when you make your order. And a lot of these, as we just showed you in the order example, we've filled out already. Okay. So when you place an order, there's some user supply data that goes in that container that you can set. So there's SSH keys, post-provision scripts, storage groups, hostname, domain name, VLANs, and metadata. And all of those are settable based on relations in that order container that we just talked about. Okay, so the receipt. This is what you get back when you actually place an order. It's going to be the type software container product order. And here are some of the important properties of that order. So you got order date, order details, and that's going to have an order container. And this array is going to be what you actually ordered, and it's going to show up in this property. The order ID, which is going to be important to look this order up in the future, and your actual placed order. So again, order ID, these two are the same. If you placed it with a quote, you could see that here. The user record is the user ID of who actually ordered this. The items are what you actually ordered. I'm talking about quotes. Quotes are a way to essentially save an order to make it easier to purchase it again without having to look up all those price IDs. So you'd create your order like you normally do. You'd save it as a quote, and then in the future, you can just order from that quote, and you'd only really need to specify the user specific data, like the host name and domain name, SSH keys, and that sort of thing, when you order it again. You don't have to look up all those price IDs every time if you're using from a quote. But when you're ordering from a quote, you need to use the software billing order quote service to order it. Otherwise, if you use the software billing order service with the quote, it'll still place the order, but it won't use any specific things from the quote to do so. All right, so now let's talk about invoices. Now that we've ordered something, let's look at the invoice for it and get all that information. So the property, the service for an invoice is a software billing invoice service that you can look on SLDN to see a lot of information about it. But we're just going to cover the highlights right now. All right, here's how all of this relates to each other. So usually you will start off with the account service and use some of the account service methods to get into the invoice data. So for example, at the start, we have all top level billing items on the account. That's going to be everything you are currently being billed for. So all the virtual servers, hardware servers, block devices that are currently active on your account will have an associated top level billing item. And when I say top level billing item, what I mean is the way we bill things for is the top level billing item will be essentially the virtual, the CPU or whatever compute product you have. And under that will be child items that represent the RAM, the disks, any of the other things you ordered along with it. And that's how these things are organized in our API. So these will all be a billing item class, which will have an ID, which represents the specific billing item, a create date, which was when it was ordered, children for that billing item. Like I just mentioned, the children will be things like RAM, operating system, monitoring, whatever. Whatever is underneath that top level item. The category, each item has a category. Each item will also have invoice items associated with it. So every time a invoice is generated, the billing items will generate an invoice item to go on the invoice, which is up here. We'll talk about that in just a second. Each billing item also has an item, which is a product item, a location, a order item, which is an order item, upgrade items, which are product items you can upgrade this item into, and a package, which is a product package. Okay. So every time an invoice is generated, this billing item will generate an invoice item, which is essentially very similar to the two, except that the invoice item will appear on the invoice. So the invoice item has its own ID, which is different than the billing item ID. It'll have its billing item, which we'll link back here. Children, which are the same as these children. So billing invoice item will have invoice item children. The product, which is product item, it goes back to. The category, the fees associated with it. The resource table ID is going to be the ID of the actual resource that's being billed for here. So this is going to be your virtual guest ID, your hardware server ID, your network VLAN ID, whatever it is. And you can tell which type it is based on the category of the item. So these invoice items will show up on an actual invoice. And you can find the invoices based on the account properties. Invoices, which are all the invoices that have ever been on your account. Or latest recurring invoice, which is going to be the latest monthly invoice that was generated. An invoice is a SoftLayer billing invoice class. It's got its own ID, type code of new, recurring, and one-time charge, create date, invoice total amount, and invoice top-level items, which link back here. Okay. So back to the other type of item, the billing order item. Again, very similar to billing item, billing invoice item. Billing order item is an item that'll show up on an order for when you order something. It'll have its own ID. It'll have a package it references to, have an order it links to, a price it links to, and an item it links to. And a billing order is anytime you place an order, it generates this billing order, and it'll have an ID. It'll have its initial invoice, which will be a new type of invoice. Order total amount. It'll have a list of items, the user record, and the quote that it was associated with. So invoice types. New invoice types are generated anytime you place an order. It gets a new invoice. Recurring are going to be your monthly generated invoices, which will have everything that was charged to your account during that month, excepting anything that was charged for a new invoice. One-time charge are going to be fairly rare and are going to be things like for overages or any other one-time charge that would show up on your account that would not be included in the recurring monthly invoice. Okay, so let's talk about how to find your order in the API. We've got our order ID from our receipt, which is this one. The SLCLI has a quick command to look this up, but here's the API call it actually makes. It calls SoftLayer billing order with the ID get object. And in this mask is going to select some properties that we want to talk about. So order total amount, we want to look at the initial invoice and get its ID. And we want to look at the invoice top level items. And we want to look at the items in the order as well. Okay, so here's what that return object would look like. So here is a SoftLayer billing order object. It has a create date, our ID that we talked about. Have an initial invoice, which is a SoftLayer billing invoice object, which again has its own ID. Our invoice has invoice top level items, which is going to be a SoftLayer billing invoice item, which is going to be an array of items. And here I've limited it to just one object so that it fits on one screen. But here's one top level item on that invoice. The guest core, like I said, compute things are organized based on the processor. So since it's a virtual guest, it's a guest core. We got a 2 by 2 gigahertz or higher core, our domain and host name, our ID of this billing invoice item, its category, and its children. So everything in this children is going to be associated with this virtual guest. So here we've got our RAM, our reboot remote console, 1 gigabit network uplinks, etc. Okay, so that's the invoice items. But down here, we have our billing order items. Again, we have the same things, the same descriptions here, but the IDs are going to be different because they're two different services of items, right? So that's just something to keep in mind. SoftLayer billing order item is different than SoftLayer billing invoice item, even though they contain mostly the same data. Okay, so finding catalog prices for an order. Here, we're going to look at our order again. We're going to SoftLayer billing order, our ID, and get items. We're going to select the item ID, item category code, item prices, and some information about the price itself. So here, our order has 2 items that we're going to talk about. So SoftLayer billing order item, our order item ID, and our item price ID. So one thing I want to point out here is that the hourly recurring fee for my order item is different than the hourly recurring fee for the item price. This is what shows up in the catalog, and this is what I actually pay for on my invoice. Now, for me, since I have a test account, all my virtual guests that I order are reduced to 0 cost because, again, like I said, it's an internal test account. So that's why, for me, the hourly recurring fee is different than the hourly recurring fee in the catalog. And that can happen sometimes. If you, for example, ordered a virtual guest on sale or for some other special pricing, for example, or if the catalog pricing updates, goes higher, for instance, and you'd still be charged based on what you ordered it for. So that's a situation where these 2 prices might differ in the API results. And that's okay because they're 2 specific different items and they can change like that. Okay. And so to recap, we talked about packages and how they're organized. Packages have items, and those items have prices, and those prices is what you need to specify in your order. Orders are grouped by containers. So when you order, you need to figure out the container that you want to order with. And those containers will have all the information you want to specify when you place your order, and that's how you do that. And once you have an order, it'll generate an invoice, and we talked about the invoice service, invoice items, and order items. And hopefully that explains how the catalog works, how to place an order, and how to look up the order once it's already said and done, and how to figure out how all the pricing relates to each other in the SoftLayer API. Thank you very much.